Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Bass Creations, Effects, Tutorials, Demos, and Review. This is Ambient Bass Effects Mornings, so typically start off with quite a bit of playing and then we might talk about a few things. But definitely hit that like button for me. Definitely appreciate all y'all chiming in. What's going on, folks? Hope you're having a great day as well. But yeah, so let's get into a few of those sounds I was doing there. The first sound was actually consist of primarily the POG 3. The POG 3 and the Mercury X, really. So let me see what I had the Mercury X on. I had it on Shimmer Lake, which is actually one of the stock presets in there. So only two things right there that really matter. Of course, I have my Empress compressor on. Make sure you guys got enough volume on this thing. So you got the Empress compressor that's always on. Doesn't color your tone too much, just kind of balances things out a little bit. And then we have the two Tonex left and right, two Tonex ones. If you want to help out the channel, you can buy Tonex stuff through the link in the description. And Mercury X. So, and from here, I'm using the TRS out of the Luminite Graviton M1, and I have it routed to this particular expression setting, because you can have different expression settings for combinations of pedals with this Graviton M1. So I have the POG 3, Enzo X, and the Mercury X, all able to be controlled by one expression pedal all at once, and on this particular setting. So let's see. Let's go. Sorry about that, guys. I changed the setting. Come on, Shimmer Lake. So you can get these really massive pad sounds going relatively easily with just this really with the POG 3 and the Mercury X combined. In terms of all of your octave needs and things like that, you're completely fine. You know, you'll have tons of options there. But yeah, so for those of you that have been following me, you know, I kind of been reduced my whole bigger setup to pretty much this. I still do have a smaller additional setup for this. I have to put together that has like the vocoder pedals, Ravish sitar and things like that, as well as the male 9, key 9. But for most gigs, like I don't even really miss the male 9 as much with this particular setup. So you just get straight into that string territory. You're already playing a string instrument, so you're not far off. Oh, that's crazy. And to be able to just do that on the fly. So that's why I love the Pog and the Hog 2, the Pog 3, the Hog 2 type thing, because it has that super ego effect in there where you can, with the glissando mode, freeze glissando, I can change the time of that. I can have it immediate. I can have it a little slower. Really have it take some time. I can completely smear it all up. And a lot of that time, and I am using my foot to control the time on the glissando of the Pog 3. So, that's something that you can experiment with if you have a Hog 2 or Super Ego or Super Ego Plus, any of those. You'll be able to experiment with the glissando time, as well as a deep freeze. You can do that with a deep freeze as well, or something similar. Not the exact thing, because you can't, with an expression pedal, control the deep freeze, but it does have an option to control on auto mode and some of the other modes, the time between the chords, glissando between the chords in the notes. So. So, and that really was just the Paul 3 and the Mercury X working together to really create those different sounds. And like I said, it kind of eliminated the immediate need to always have the male 9 or the key 9 available to me. What's going on, folks? All the usual suspects starting to pop in. Definitely appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all hit that like button while you're here. Everybody having a good time, all that good stuff. And subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, so right here, what you're listening to, let's peel back a few layers. So again, the pretty much always on pedals are the Empress compressor and the Tone X1s, left and right. Then pretty much from there, you can, I can do whatever I want with the Impact, Future Impact V4 VIP and these 3 pedals. And believe it or not, between these 4 pedals here, it replaced a lot of the other pedals I had on my pedal board. So if I need distortions or overdrives, things like that, I can get that out of, actually all 4 of these pedals have overdrives, distortions. They all have filters, and any type of filter I want, I can create with the Enzo X. Mercury X, the Future Impact also has a really extensive filter section to it. So, with that, I really don't need to carry around a bunch of analog filters and envelope filters, random filters, LFOs, like everything. I do all that with the, I like to use the Enzo X personally, just because where I have it in the chain, and because I like these filters the most out of all of them on the dry bass sound. Filter get nasty. And this is a synth pedal, and this is a reverb pedal, and you can get this filter out of both of them. So definitely getting some amazing filters out of the Enzo X and the Mercury X. Yeah, so there will be a update to the Future Impact. It's pretty much going to add access to the DX7, Yamaha DX7, I believe it is. A few of the sounds and options on there. And it should improve some of the tracking. I heard about it, asked about it, all that good stuff. So pretty much once they finish, I guess, making sure that it's real stable and all that stuff, they're going to release it. But, yeah, it should be here in March for sure. It's pretty much, adding helping you get to some additional keyboard sounds, And what they pretty much did, they created, it's like they got recreated some sounds in there from some additional bass sounds from some famous songs in there as well. So it's a free, I believe it's a free update. Should be worthwhile. Especially if you already got it. You know what I'm saying? You already got the unit. You might as well get your updates. But yeah, Future Impact definitely has a lot to it. It's just for me, my real go-to pedals is always going to be these marriage pedals for the majority of my bass effects needs and things like that. That's why these two pedals actually did most of the reducing of things, of the amount of pedals, because of the amount of stuff these pedals do well. Future Impact definitely is geared towards synth bass stuff. Like I said, I got a few things in here that are, see if I got a filter ready to go in here. Future Impact. But you can't, synth bass, you can't do nothing with this joint. Trying to remember where I put these joints. Yeah, you should get some new access to some new sounds on there with the update when it actually does come out for the Future Impact V4 and VIP. So, it's worth. I definitely think it'll be worth you, checking out and stuff. And hopefully, they said it's improved tracking. We're talking increments here, guys. I wouldn't expect it to be a whole different thing with the tracking. I just expect that it might tighten up a few little glitches here and there that it might have, previously responded in a way we didn't, But I'm not really expecting it to be like some super update, But as you can see, like even this distortion here, these are some of the bass distortions I designed with the Future Impact. So I can come over here to the Hog. Come over here to the Pog 3. I keep calling it the Hog. I'm so used to that. I can actually see if I can get, if it's going to work. Oh, you got to turn it on. I can get this to do overdrive as well. Really push it too. Detune, of course. So, not the greatest. For me, I like this type of distortion when I'm using my synth stuff or creating a whole patch with this, but it's not my favorite distortion overdrive sound by itself. But I absolutely love the one that's in these pedals, the Enzo X and the Mercury X. See, I'm not even sure if I have one. This is with an octave down on it. So, and that's actually the Enzo X, using that octave. It has an octaver in there as well, mono and poly octavers in here. So I actually really like that. That's kind of fire. So if we just come back over to the Pog 3, you can actually do something. See what we got here. Matter of fact, I should have octave down already. So you can pretty much get a nice octave sound with either one of these pedals here. Now, in terms of tracking, the Pog 3 is going to be faster, and it's always in poly mode, so it's going to be faster tracking in poly mode. It's the same when the Enzo X is in mono, but poly mode on here, I say it. Even though it does have a little bit more latency than the one on the Pog 3, it's not really that crazy of a difference, to be honest. It's actually very similar, but I use this octave up here sometimes when I want to do when I want to incorporate it into the sound or to the other effects, So, for instance, let's go to bam, bam. We got the synths on the Enzo X. So you're gonna sound like this. almost getting into that ravish sitar, territory. That's what I was saying. Having these pedals, one thing I realized about the Mel 9, the Key 9, the Synth 9, all that stuff is actually, if you look at the old Bill Rupert videos, he actually showed you how to make all those sounds with separate effects. And then, so I noticed when they came out with the Mel 9, they pretty much took a lot of those settings that he created and made them, like, just tweaked them to where it's very limited change to that you can do to the preset, but it also gave you a ton of effects all stacked on top of each other, because that's how you get sounds like this. Plus, they have great tracking. Electro-Harmonix and Maris have some of the best tracking. And that's literally, so if I take out the Enzo X, that's just the Mel 9, and that's using that poly mode on the octave, so now the octave up is part of the reverb and delay sounds. You can even sustain it. So it has a freeze function as well, just like the POG 3. Just a different type, So it's just like they actually have two different sounds to them. Mercury X is just so pleasant sounding. Like, I've never had something that sounded that amazing. See, we got here, just took the ME90B pedal I found. Okay. Awesome. Glad you liking that Boss pedal there. Yeah, a lot of these units a lot of these multi-effects units also have, halfway decent synths. Like, even the Zoom B6 and the Zoom multi-stomps have a decent, like, bass synth sound you can get out of them. So, you don't always have to spend $600 for a synth pedal, especially if you don't know what you're doing with it. Why, you want to start with something easier to use. Like, I also own an MXR bass synth as well. It just doesn't make it onto this pedal board. This any sound I can get with this, or need to get with this, I can get a better version of that with the Future Impact. That's just being honest. Like I said, because I buy this stuff myself, when I buy stuff myself, I'm not fixing to not give you guys the truth. It doesn't make sense. You guys are the people that support me, so, everybody else gonna have to deal with that, But not saying that this isn't a good pedal. This is a good pedal. That's why it's still here. I would have sold it or got rid of it if I didn't think it was a good pedal. But it just didn't make it onto this pedal board. I got sounds on here that I can't create with the other ones, because the other ones are, like the Future Impact sounds exactly like a vintage bass synth. This doesn't sound exactly like a real bass synth to me. This replaces Future Impact replaces a key bass, This doesn't, but this can also get you some great sounds. Just because it doesn't replace the key bass doesn't mean it's trash, or the tracking is pretty good. The sounds are pretty good, so definitely check it out, if you got that in your budget. All right, let me see something here. I need to make sure this doesn't cut off. Turn that on a second. I hate to have to turn on a fan, but trying to make sure my camera don't cut off on me. Seem to be getting a little hot up there. Hopefully that helps us out. Make sure we get cool. But yeah, so but legit, but legit, you'd be crazy not to get one of these, you know what I'm saying, like the Enzo X or the Mercury X, depending on what you want in your life. Even both of them, like I said, the Mercury X, great for the end of your chain as a bass player. I never had a reverb pedal that I thought would be, this great at the end of the chain. So let's say this is just my regular bass sound here. Not a bad sound at all. That's just the Empress and the Tone X1s. The Tone X1s are running one of my combination packs, which is the JHS Colorbox V2 running into an Aguilar Aguilar SGT DI pedal. So that's the tone model you're listening to right now. This is actually the clarity. One of my settings are called clarity. So as you can hear, it has a ton of clarity to it. But you throw on the Negus preamp setting, and all my presets for the Mercury X, Enzo X, Future Impact, and the Tone X1s, as well as a host of other pedals, are all over on the Patreon. Make sure you check out the Patreon for all my preset packs. But now check out how much clarity the sound has. I'm going to flip it on and off. So it's on right now. And that's how good the compressors are on compressor and limiter, as well as I have one of the preamps on in there, which is the preamp section on the Mercury X. All those preamps can be overdriven. So, but I have it on one of the cleaner settings. And I also have a high pass filter on that to make sure that it doesn't get too muddy down there. There's plenty of bass, plenty of bottom. Without it, with it, it doesn't feel like it take anything away. It just feels like it added some clarity to it. So. So, when you're looking at the price of certain pedals, I also suggest that you take into account, everything that it can do, and not just everything it can do, how well it does those individual things. something like a Mercury X, while it's advertised as a reverb, a modular reverb pedal, it's a multi effects unit essentially dedicated on and centered around reverb. But the compressors, diffusion and the preamps, the filters, the modulations, and you also get delay in there as well. And you get like hold and freeze functions and all this other stuff. Pretty much anything you could think of that you need a reverb pedal to do, it will do, with the exception of loading IRs, which I don't particularly care about. All these reverbs in here sound so amazing. What room am I gonna, go and do that's gonna be better than what they've already done on here? For me, it's not gonna happen. So, I like what they have in here, and you can use it for bass. Like I can gig with just a Mercury X. I don't actually have to have all this stuff. I can go to a gig and literally do entire gig with a bunch of different sounds, not just reverb sounds, solid bass sounds, delays, all that stuff. It's already in there. It's my regular bass sound. This with that setting. And that's a reverb pedal. And I can still freeze that. And as you can hear, I have the filter there set to an LFO. I can set that same filter to envelope. I can set it anywhere in the signal chain I need it to go, on just the dry or just the wet signal, or on the pre-delay section. I can put it on the pre-tank, or I can put it post of the signal. So many options. And I can easily just really, if I wanted to turn that reverb off, turn that pre-delay off, you just go to the mix and turn it off. Is this the dry burn or pre-delay? Oh, pre-delay burn. That's and every time I turn on these filters, somebody asks me, what is that filter? Like it be the Mercury X, Enzo X. They have two of the same filters. You do have on here, you have the state variable. And what is it? State variable. Oh, the ladder filter, state variable filter, and the parametric filter, which is just like essentially a one-band EQ. And on this one, you have the ladder filter, state variable filter, and a twin filter. So, like the buzz balls, or bass balls. I said buzz balls, bass balls. So, yes, this is worth it. It's above, for me, the ability to do the things I can do with this pedal make it worth the $600. It's essentially a multi-effects unit with some extremely high quality effects in there. So definitely worth checking out. Um, Other thing I would say that's kind of surprising about this board is everything on here is being ran on a Canvas Power 15 underneath, and that's actually I'm only using like half of it, but in terms of percentage of the power I'm using, I'm probably using about 20%, 15% of the total capacity I could put on that power supply. So, that power supply can, up to 15 pedals plus USB devices, plus you can link them together. I'm really loving that Canvas power supply. Very quiet, reliable. Doesn't add too much heat either. Yeah, definitely. If you get a chance to pick up a Mercury X or Enzo X, it'll definitely change, what I'm saying, your perspective on pedals like this. And this is why I say some things sound more expensive than they really are. It was more expensive for me to get all the pedals that I needed to replace this. The Line 6 HX1, the TC Electronic Plethora X1, the Zoom MS70 CDR Plus, the Deep Freeze, the MXR Layers, the what else? The MXR Poly Blue. Also took out all the filters, so the electroharmonic blurs, the MXR bass envelope filter, and the Source Audio Atlas. The Source Audio Atlas compressor, their Spectrum, and the C4 synth. So, yeah, all that stuff got replaced by like these pedals, which is a lot easier for me to manage, and I'm not sacrificing. My main thing is I didn't want to sacrifice quality of sound or functionality to just be having a bunch of less pedals. I wanted my setup to still sound just or better, if possible, with less pedals. And these cost more, but this is about 650, 600, 600. But they replaced. I spent probably about 25 or 26. You know what I'm saying? On all those other individual little pedals over time. You feel me? So I hope that makes sense. So, yeah, the main tip today I would say was, look at something that's really got a good amount of functionality to it. There's a lot of reverb pedals out here, and the Mercury X is pretty much going to do every reverb you would ever need, plus all that other stuff at the end of your chain. So, that's enough. They're not. This is not an advertisement for them or nothing like that. But I just really like the Mercury X. Just like I was telling you guys about the Enzo X and the Tone X1s or anything that I'm used up here, I pretty much could talk about for a while and just tell you how great it is. That's why I'm using it. But it's just this always impressed me as soon as I start listening to it. But in terms of nice bass effects, I think the Enzo X is going to give you some of the best ones. Like, this is my favorite chorus in the world for bass. Let's see what we got chorus right there. And you can make that an envelope chorus. The crazy thing, you can make it an envelope chorus. What is it? A step filter. You can use it on a step. What is it called? You can use. Forgot what this joint called. Yeah, the sequence. You can make it like a sequence with the chorus using the depth or one of the mods. You can pretty much assign any parameter to these different modifiers here. The modifiers are things like LFOs. You get two LFOs, LFO-A, LFO-B. You get an SNH, which is pretty much like a random thing. It'll randomly do its thing with whatever parameter you set there, and within the guidelines that you set, you can have it attached to the hold modifier to add more depth or more in the mix. So and you can still attach it to the expression pedal. So, and you can have up to 6 parameters to one expression pedal. I absolutely love those devices. Like, they are definitely some of my favorites, if you can't tell already. So now, I think one thing that gets overlooked with the Future Impact. Let's go back here. Let's go. Besides the synth-based stuff you can do, the stuff you can do with the lead sounds. So, and all these different sounds are also in the Future Impact V4 preset pack on my Patreon. So, all these different presets you're hearing from the Enzo X and Mercury X, Future Impact, as well as the Tonix ones, it's already on the Patreon. So, including different preamps like the Colorbox V2, Ampeg SGT, Aguilar AG preamp, Tisa Electronic BH500, the original, Jens Band Shuttle 9, you know what I'm saying? You got all that stuff on there. Lil Mark Bass 3, Harkey, got the the Digbeth on there, Laney Digbeth preamp on there as well. So go check all that stuff out on my Patreon. Appreciate you. So, but Future Impact actually has some really good lead sounds because it's essentially a vintage synth. It's not just a bass synth. It's essentially a vintage mono synth. So you can create some of the classic lead sounds. So it's so much stuff you can do. I don't think they teamed up with Yamaha. I don't think they teamed up with Yamaha. I think they just created the pack. I don't remember him distinctly saying they partnered with him when I was talking to him. Did manage to get a picture with the guy that created the pedals. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh. So yeah, I did get a chance to meet him, all that good stuff. Hopefully we'll be doing some things together as well in the future. But it's just the amount of stuff you can do. And it doesn't seem like it because it's just in this little box, right? This little Future Impact. It don't seem like it can do as much stuff as it can do. But this actually has 4 oscillators. Separate oscillators that you can create custom waveforms of on each one by combining different waveforms. So you can take a saw wave and a square wave, mix them together, and that's all on one oscillator. And then you can play with the pulse width, or you can play with some of the sawtooth functionalities and things like that. Excuse me. It just sounds great. It just sounds the way I need it to sound, And like I said, I recommend grabbing my preset pack if you want to hit the ground running with your bass sounds. Let me show y'all something. Y'all think it's a game. Hit the ground running. Yeah, so it's just crazy, For one, and that's definitely not a true statement. If you need all that equipment to sound good, you don't sound good. Overkill dude sounds like shit. Oh, no, that's great, brother. I mean, are you going to get on camera and we can have a cutting session? Would you do that? I don't think you want to do that because I'll tear your ass up. So I suggest you just calm yourself down over there, have a nice day. If you don't like it, just go to something else. But there's 1,000,001. So you saying all the bass players in the world, including Victor Wooten and everybody else that use effects pedals, all of it's overkill. Yeah, right. Some guy who we don't know. And some guy we don't care to know. So, we over here, we keep it positive with folks. Okay? We definitely keep it positive. So if you're not going to cam up and pull your bass, get your bass out, and I don't use nay pedal. I won't use nothing but just my bass. And then we go from there. That's how you do that, like a man. You don't sit there and just talk trash about folks. If you had an opportunity to show them, show me. But you ain't gonna do it. So, yeah. So the Future Impact. They did a wonderful job with this pedal. Like I was saying before, kudos to them. Panda Audio. This is my favorite bass synth pedal. Period. That's a massive bass sound. So, bam. Beautiful. And that's all the Future Impact. beautiful. And so all the and it's a real simp. So I would say the Future Impact is high up on the list of things that I would recommend for bassists to have in terms of you can also use this as your key bass rig, so you don't have to go and really get a whole separate key bass rig. Like, you know what I'm saying? You can just get a MIDI controller for about $100-$200, run MIDI to the Future Impact, and you essentially have a vintage mono bass synth at your hands for $500-$600 all in, including the MIDI controller. And you get a little, the MIDI controllers are very light. You grab your little $20-$30 stand, keyboard stand off of Amazon, a few little Amazon MIDI cables or whatever you want to use, if you want to spend a little bit more money, but you can get it straight into the key bass game as soon as you grab a Future Impact V4 VIP. So that's another amazing feature of this particular pedal that makes it me really recommend it. Because a lot of times when we have to get a key bass rig, that's another $500 to $1,000. If we get in the keyboards that, the bass, Novation, and that's stuff around $500 to $1,000. A lot of stuff we be looking at. Sometimes more if we want like a Moog, so, or Moog, Moog, one of those, whatever they call it. Those are expensive. And I can honestly say the Future Impact gets you in that same territory to the point where I think most people would have a hard time distinguishing between the two, especially with you playing this on key bass. So now I'm still getting to know the what's this thing? The POG 3, but that's also somewhat of a multi-effects unit in case you was wondering. It actually has not just the octaves, you got your attack, you know what I'm saying? You can control your attack, you got an envelope filter here, and this filter can be set to high pass, low pass, and bandwidth, and bandpass filter, yep. And detune, so you get your chorus pedal here. You can also have somewhat of a delay sound. So I'm just turning this on. But yeah, so you can obviously, with very few pedals these days, get into some very crazy sounds. It's really not too much I can't do with this setup. Like I said, the only thing I'm really missing or really want to still be incorporated into this setup would be my V256 vocoder, so I can do my vocoder parts as well. But other than that, I really don't have to have the Rabbit Sitar or the Key 9, Mel 9. I want them, but I don't have to have them. I can get very close to those sounds with this setup. So definitely check out the individual reviews of these pedals over on my page as well. Yeah, the Tonix ones, I definitely recommend those too. And they 24-bit, 192 kilohertz with the sound quality, you know what I'm saying, when it's used from the pedal. In the computer, it's only going to be, if you run it as an audio interface, it's only going to be 24-bit, 44.1 kilohertz. But once you put the tone models or presets onto the pedal, and it's running through the pedal, it's at 192 kilohertz. So great sound quality with these, especially live. And the POG 3, I will say, yeah, it does take up quite a bit of space. It's not a small pedal. It's still smaller than the Hog 2 though, but it does take up a bit of space. It just, I think it can justify it. With the amount of flexibility of the unit and everything else, it's probably the most advanced octave pedal I've ever seen. I've never seen any octave pedal that does as much as this one does. So, hats off to them for that. And like I said, the tracking is good. The tracking is really good. It even tracks. I can't even say I honestly have ever heard this thing glitch. Now that I think about it, I've never heard this thing. Let me try to make it glitch out. That's insane. That's insane tracking. First off, let's get this straight here. 6-string bass. See, when I turned on the focus there, got a little bit of a glitch. But when it's in the original Pog mode, a little bit of latency there. See what I'm saying? They all got a little bit of latency. This is about as close as I can get it to glitching. So without that focus, no, So for the Pog 3, I'm noticing like if I want to do more solo stuff, I'm probably going to have this focus button on. And if I'm doing more chordal things, have it off. Because it tracks chordally perfect, like the chords perfectly without it. So definitely like it. Yeah, so for the chordal stuff with the Pog 3, definitely you want to have a setting with the focus off. And for the like your faster single lines, you want to use that focus to get nice, very nice clarity in the individual line. So No, I haven't heard a glitch out before then either. I had to really think about how to make the pedal malfunction. You know what I'm saying? Because they pretty much have knocked a lot of those normal glitches from other octave pedals out. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to pull the trigger on it. You know that, and it has, of course, the built-in presets. I was rocking the Electro-Harmonix Hog 2 for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I had that pedal for over 10 years. Really didn't want to get rid of it. But when they finally modernized a lot of the features, they added some things. They took away one or two features that I liked on the Hog 2, but I suppose you can't have everything. But, you know, they used to have a decay knob, and it had two more octaves. Or it had three more octaves settings. But, you know, this does have the warp function where you can change, you can actually customize what you want the individual sliders to what interval you would like them to do. So like I said, you even get the sound dirtier or cleaner. You don't really need that. Always got settings. Okay, we take that. We take that, freeze that. Let me make sure I didn't just mess up my camera. Appreciate y'all hanging in there with me. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe. Check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. Yeah, any pedal though. I always tell people this. You know, they always ask me about tracking of pedals. The tracking really depends on how you're playing the pedal, more than it is the actual pedals. You know what I'm saying? So I try to find, most times. There's very few pedals though that I've played where the tracking was just so terrible nobody could ever play anything with it. But I have run across a few. Now, I say that to say, generally the tracking these days is going to be pretty good on most things. A lot of times it's little things like your EQ of your actual bass, how you're playing your bass, if you're playing it cleanly. Sometimes if you're even playing it cleanly, you might still need to have something like a fret wrap to help you out, just so you can be a little bit more free like your normal playing, because it does pick up every little noise at times depending on how you have it EQ'd. So this just helps quiet some of that fret wrap. But then from there, a lot of times the tracking on these pedals has settings. So, for instance, on the Future Impact, you can't just set this input level. You need to set the note on and the note off level, and also make sure if you've changed it that it's in bass mode. You know, in the global settings. So for the Enzo X and the Mercury X, the tracking. Well, let's go to the Enzo X. Enzo X is going, and that note persist makes a huge difference. It's a setting in there called note persist. And it's going to determine how long the tracking is tracking the note. So like if you're playing faster lines, you want a shorter time. If you're playing longer chords, you want a longer time on that, and that'll help your pedal track your playing a lot better. So, you know, these are just some little tips and tricks. And hopefully today I'll be back a little bit later on to do some more stuff. I'm actually probably going to be deep diving into this pedal for you guys. But this is going to be probably a members only live stream. So if you're not a member of the YouTube channel or the Patreon, you probably won't get all the tips and tricks. This doesn't have a preset pack. doesn't have ability to. So instead of doing that, I'm going to just give you guys a bunch of settings and show you guys how to get to a bunch of sounds with it. And, just like anything else, costs a little bit of money. So if you want to support the channel and you want to get exclusives like this, like, I don't do them little 5-10 minute play around with the pedal and then, we out of there. I don't do that to you guys. I give you guys some real in-depth settings and real in-depth things to learn, Even with a pedal like this, it has tracking settings as well. Just to go back for 1 second. I had to set this up to properly track the way I wanted to. I think that's where a lot of people sold this, pedal off when they got it. They just didn't fiddle around with the tracking settings. So, but yeah, I'll be giving you all that stuff. Amazing pedal. Love it. Oh, nah. This with this, let me switch to my regular view. So this little black thing on my fretboard is the fret wrap. So normally when I'm tapping is when I'm primarily using it. So if I'm doing something like, something like that, the fret wrap allows me to do that tapping without it. See all that extra ringing? That's because I can't tap the notes and do all the normal muting. I don't need it when I'm normally playing, so that's why it's behind the nut, because all that muting is done with my actual fingers. Right? So I don't need it then, but if I'm doing you see what I'm saying? Especially stuff like that. That tapping without that. Well, I'm in the habit of stopping my strings. I'm sorry. See, as soon as I let it go with the fret wrap, so that's what essentially it is, and they aren't expensive. They're could you use other things like Victor Wooten for years used hair ties, and from the fluffier hair ties. He used to use those, and somebody designed the fret wrap to do the same thing, probably after seeing him do it. And then, he got it from his brother Reggie. Fun fact, that's also my name. But they designed one for guitar and bass, so we could do tapping things and all that good stuff. So yeah, those are worth investing in as well if you're into tapping, or even when you're recording. Say you're not the cleanest player, they can help you out when you're recording. You don't want to use it as a crutch on the regular, but sometimes you got to get through the session. You feel me? You got to get through the session. However way you can. Keyboard players be transposing and everything else. We don't have that. So yeah, if you got to throw on a fret wrap to help you sound cleaner on the record real quick, do what you got to do. Just don't depend on that all the time, and make sure that you are working on playing cleanly. But always do what's necessary to make the client and make the gig or whatever it is, the event, successful. That's your job, and that's our job as musicians, to make other people feel good when we go to play. It ain't really about us. I think a lot of times we forget that. We think it's about us and our playing, when it's ultimately about the environment you create, and how you really. It's like this. People don't remember what you say or what you do. They remember how you made them feel, because they will change completely everything you did and said based on how it made them feel. Trust and believe. Seen it a million times. So, but yeah. So, Pog 3 definitely. All these pedals you see here are, I definitely give a ton of thumbs up to. They've done amazing jobs, to the point where I only got one analog pedal left. They done took the analog game out, boy. I'm trying to tell you. Between, these companies that you see in here, like I can honestly say it really ain't even worth having analog no more. For real. Like it's so much more of a hassle, I do love my Empress compressor. And that's one of my last few analog pieces of gear that's really holding on in there. But that's just a testament to how amazing it is. That creamy sound I get from here, I just need it. It starts my signal off right. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it just gives me a nice sound to it. So I definitely love the Empress compressor, but I'm hoping they don't have a digital replacement for that sounds just as good. One day maybe. But yep, always make sure that the client and the people dancing, the people having a good time, you doing your job. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you ultimately build your clientele and things like that in music. So, but all right, guys, I definitely appreciate you hanging out with me. This has been another episode of All Bass Creations, Ambient Bass Effects Mornings. I am the Bass Negus. Make sure you find me on all social media at the Bass Negus, Negus, and check out my Patreon for all my various preset packs for these different pedals. I'll also be coming out with a Pog 3 pack soon, where I'll be having a ton of different presets for that. I still have preset packs for the C4 synth, the Zoom MS60B Plus, the MS70 CDR Plus, Zoom B6, just naming some stuff that you guys don't see up here. So all that stuff's available on the Patreon. Check it out. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for stopping by, checking me out, and I'll hit you guys later. Peace.